Welcome everyone. This is the Masterclass. My name is Patricknazareth. I have around 30 years of teaching experience and I'm here to help dispel your doubts if you have any. Today we look at the poem Beethoven written by Shane Koyczan. Shane Koyczan was born on the 22nd of May 1976. He writes primarily on issues like bullying, cancer, death, and eating disorders. He is a Canadian spoken word poet. He has written an anti-bullying poem called To This Day, which has garnered over 25 million YouTube views. Listen, his father made a habit out of hitting him. See, some men drink, some men yell, some men hit their children. This man did it all because I guess all men want their boys to be geniuses. Beethoven, little boy, living in a house where a name meant nothing, living in a house where mercy had to be earned through each perfect note tumbling up through the roof. Here the poet tries to tell us about the home life of the boy Beethoven. He says that men are of different types. Some people drink, some people yell, some people hit their children. Beethoven's father did all three. Why did he do so? Because he wanted his child to be a genius. He wanted his child to be perfect in music. So if Beethoven thought that being his son, Beethoven thought that his name was enough to insure him from his father's beatings, he was wrong. The only thing that kept his father from beating him, the only thing that kept his father from hitting him was if, while practicing music, not a note came out wrong. To tickle the toes of angels whose harps couldn't hold half the passion that was held in the hands of a young boy who was hard of hearing. Beethoven, who heard his father's anthem every time he put finger to ivory. It was not good enough, so he played slowly. Not good enough, so he played softly. Not good enough, so he played strongly. And when he could play no more, when his fingers cramped up into the gnarled roots of tree trunks, it was not good enough. Beethoven, a musician. So each note that rose from Beethoven, it soared so high that it even reached the heavens, where the angels dwell. Where the angels use their harps, but their harps could not give forth such beautiful music as this boy could produce. And this boy was hard of hearing. He was deaf also. He was going steadily deaf. But every time he tried to play, he had to put up with his father's words. Repetitive, repetitive, repetitive. What was it? It was simply not good enough. Whatever the boy was doing was not good enough. Either the music was too soft, or it was too loud, or it was too strong, or it was too soft. And he used to play and play until his fingers cramped up with the pain. And they almost became like claws, like tree roots. When they go into the soil, they are permanently cramped. The ivory mentioned here is on the piano. The piano keys are called ivories. Years back, they used to be actually made of real ivory. Playing a piano is called playing the ivories. Without his most precious tool, his eardrums, could no longer pound out rhythms for the symphonies playing in his mind. He couldn't hear the audience clapping, couldn't hear the people loving him, couldn't hear the women in the front row whispering, Beethoven, as they let the music invade their nervous system like an armada marching through, firing cannonballs, detonating every molecule in their bodies into explosions of heavenly sensation, each note leaving track marks over every inch, their bodies making them ache for one more hit. He was an addiction, and kings, queens, it didn't matter. The man got down on his knees. The poet tells us how Beethoven went steadily deaf, and the most precious tool that was available to him was his eardrums, because whatever he used to play, he could hear. But now, since he was deaf, he could not hear the rhythms that he was playing, he could not hear the symphonies that he was playing. In fact, he could not even hear the audiences he was playing for clap for him, applaud for him, women whispering to him. He couldn't hear anything at all. The music that he played was so beautiful that it entered every part of you, and every part of you vibrated to his music. It was that beautiful, that heavenly, and it was almost like a drug. It sent them to greater heights. It was like an addiction. Whether you were a king or whether you were a queen, it didn't matter. Common person, it didn't matter. An armada is a fleet of navy ships. As they get into battle, they start firing the cannon. Similarly, each note of his music left people feeling as if they were being hit by something, but in this case, by something beautiful, by something marvelous, and they wanted more and more and more. The man got down on his knees but amputated the legs of his piano so he could feel the vibrations through the floor. The man got down on his knees for music, and when the orchestra played his symphonies, it was the echoes of his father's anthem repeating itself, like a broken record, broken down record. It was not good enough, so they played slowly, not good enough. They played softly, not good enough, so they played strongly, not good enough. So they tried to mock the man, made fun of the madness by mimicking the movements, holding their bows a quarter of an inch above the strings, not making a sound. It was perfect. See, the deaf have an intimacy with silence. Beethoven has lost his hearing, so he cannot hear anything. He needs to feel his music. So in order to feel his music, he gets down on his knees as close to the floor as possible. He removes the legs of his piano, so the music, when he plays the keys, the floors will literally vibrate. But as the orchestra played, as he tried to listen, as he heard the vibrations, he became his father in a sense, because for him, the musicians were not playing well enough. They were too fast, too slow, not strong enough. And the more he told them, and he told them that he wanted the music to be done this way, they got upset. And they decided to make fun of him because he was deaf. And they said, what can this man hear? How can he say that we are playing music badly if he cannot even hear us? So they took the strings of the instruments. For example, if you have a violin, you're holding it like this. Instead of the bow touching the strings, they kept the bow above it. So in other words, they made the motions, but there was no sound coming. But Beethoven was deaf. The deaf are perfectly comfortable with silence. He was perfectly able to understand what was going on. The reference to a broken record is something that not every one of us can understand, because records were before our time. But essentially, a record was a round object made of vinyl, and it used to play on a turntable. You put the record on it, a needle touched the record, and as the record moved, music came out of it. When a record broke, that needle got stuck. So the same sound, the same word played again and again. So for example, if you were playing a song that had the word heaven, the record would say heaven, 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 heaven over and over again, because it got stuck at that point. So when we say a broken record, we simply mean something which plays itself, which says something again and again. So in Beethoven's mind, the words of his father played itself over and over again, telling him he was not good enough. And those same words he used to criticize the way his musicians were playing. It's there in their dreams, and the musicians turn to one another, not knowing what to make of the man, trying to calculate the distance between madness and genius, realizing that Beethoven's musical measurements could take you to distances reaching past the towers of Babylon, turning solar systems into symbols that crash together, causing comets to collide, creating crescendos that were so loud they shook the constellations until the stars began to fall from the sky and it looked like the entire universe had begun to cry. The silence was there. The musicians were not playing, but Beethoven could hear. He could feel their movements, he could see their movements. The musicians did not know what to make of it. They looked at each other. Is this man mad? Is he a genius? And they realized Beethoven was a genius above all else. He could play sounds that could reach back into history even, way past the towers of Babylon that are lost to us. He could go into the universe, and even the stars would fall from the skies. How was it possible? Distance must be an illusion. The man must be a genius. Beethoven, his thoughts moving at the speed of sound, transforming emotion into music. And for a moment, it was like joy, was a tangible thing, like you could touch it, like for the first time we could watch love and hate dance together in a waltz of such precision and speed that we finally understood that history wasn't important. To know the man, all we ever had to do was listen. The musicians realized that the man Beethoven was a genius. His thoughts were such he could transform emotion, whether it was joy, whether it was anger, whether it was fear, into something that you could touch through his music. Hate and love danced together for him, and you could see it. And if you really wanted to understand Beethoven, the poet tells us, all we actually need to do is not read the pages of history, not read what people tell us about him, but simply to listen to his music. What are the themes that run through this poem then? Firstly, the relationship between pain and creative expression. It is well documented in most people's lives. We would say that no matter how great a poet, how great a painter, how great a sculptor, that painting, that music, that sculpture, that creativity comes from a place of pain. You have to experience pain. Perhaps you have to even experience deep trauma and lasting trauma in order to bring forth masterpieces. You can bring joy to other people's lives when they see what you have done. But these people, the people who are seeing what you have done and applauding what you have done, do not really understand that there is a relationship between the pain that you have gone through, the trauma that you have felt, and the art that you have come up with, and that is what the poet tries to bring out. Also, persistence. No matter how talented anybody is, no matter how good at anything anyone is, until and unless you continue to try and improve, until and unless you continue to work through the pain, until and unless you continue to try and do things better and better, improving and increasing your standard every time, you will never be able to make something beautiful. That's it then, the end of the lesson. I hope I have been able to help you. If I have, please do remember to like, subscribe and share. Remember, there might be other people out there who would need our help. Thank you for watching.